hello, Kamili. Thank you so much for being a part of the Plants as Liberation series for the New York Botanical Garden. If you want to first just share your name, your pronouns, and how would you describe your work?
Okay, great. Thank you so much for having me. I am Kamili Bell Hill, and I am she, her, and I would describe my work as plants as the path to peace.
I love that.
Just like reclaiming our healing, reclaiming our rest. You know, it can be really a point of pure stress relief, and that is how I would describe my work. Black joy.
Yes, Black joy through plants.
Yes.
Do you have a early memory with plants? Kind of like what sparked this passion for you?
So there is no corner of my childhood that was not involved in plants. My mother is the original plant lady for me. She had an indoor urban jungle before we even called it that, before houseplants were trendy. She had tons of tall ficus trees, which ironically are the first ones that I killed. I cannot grow them if my life depended on it. And Boston ferns, and the Saturdays were spent helping her water our plants. And then my grandmother, who helped raise me, she grew everything. They migrated during the Great Migration from Florida, and this is in Bridgeport, Connecticut. And my grandmother had in her backyard apple trees, cherry trees, plum trees. Like it was a virtual fruit orchard. Ooh. And that is something that she brought with her from Florida. And, and inside she would grow little kumquat trees. So my childhood was full of plants. I felt very connected to plants.
I love that. So you grew up in Florida, you said?
No, I grew up in Connecticut, but my grandmother migrated from Florida.
What part of Connecticut did you grow up in? I grew up in Connecticut too.
I grew up in Bridgeport.
Oh, wow. I grew up in Kent, really close to New Milford.
Okay. Yes. Okay. I know that. And, our family, she was the only one who migrated here. All of the rest of my grandmother's family stayed in Florida, but she just brought a little piece of that gardening with her. She was always growing something. If it were, the kumquat trees, they were there all through the winter long, and they fascinated me, those little teeny weeny oranges. They're not easy to eat or peel, but she just was always growing. So I just can't think of a single memory that wasn't plant filled.
I love that. Yeah. It kind of was like always around you, even if you
wasn't
sure it was going to be a part of your future. The seeds were there.
Exactly. The seeds were there. And, originally, when I entered adulthood, I did not have houseplants inside. My plant love continued outside because I spent a lot of time with my grandmother in her garden and in her flower beds. Like every single corner of her small yard was full of hydrangeas. So as an adult, that was like, when I became a homeowner, the very first thing I did was fill my yard with hydrangeas. So my first foray as an adult was definitely outside, not inside.
Okay. Got you. You cut out just for a sec, but you came back.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, you're good now.
Okay.
Yeah, I saw on your Instagram page that you used to be a lawyer. And I would love to know more about that trajectory. How did you end up from law to the plant world?
So, I ended up there because my mom is an attorney, my sister is also, and so I followed in my mother's footsteps. But I worked in corporate at first, corporate tax, which is soul draining. It's where creativity and joy go to die. So when I had my first daughter, I never imagined myself as being someone who stayed home. I didn't see that as a path for me. It just wasn't something that I wanted to do. But after she was born, I couldn't imagine leaving her. So taking a career break from that world was very easy. It was a really easy decision. And just as she grew up and I was always busy, I kind of needed something for myself. that had nothing to do with mothering, nothing to do with, volunteering or being a wife, just something that was purely for my own enjoyment. And I found that in plants.
Mm. And you started the plant blurb, and it's not just plants, because it's also decor items. It's more about what it includes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I guess I found my way to houseplants really as I began to want to like re-enter working outside the home. I didn't want to go back into corporate. So I started interior design. And at first it was just a few family members. Then it branched out to friends, and then recommendations and referrals. And every single space I did, I had to use at least one plant.
Yeah.
And there was one client, I bought her the fiddly fig, which is like the quintessential, design plant, right?
Yeah.
You can't turn on HGTV or open up a magazine. Somebody has a fiddly fig somewhere in a corner, right? So when I bought hers, I loved it. And I was like, let's just try this out. It's beautiful. But I really only thought of it as like, just decor, so I immediately stuck it in the corner where, they can't live there. So I learned that quickly when leaves started to drop. And when I moved it and started to take a little bit more care and interest and be more purposeful in caring for that plant, something just like switched, and it just really sparked something in me, I guess maybe back to my childhood that I had forgotten about, the joy of gardening inside.
Yeah, especially right now in the wintertime where it's
especially right now.
I more than ever just want to bring more plants in. I'm a really avid community gardener in New York City, but right now I'm like, more plants, just even propagating projects. And
exactly.
So much better.
It's so much better. And it just like, we live in the Northeast, so there's no gardening, there's no outdoor enjoyment during the winter months. So it's just wonderful to have nature indoors through these plants.
And so do you still go and help people with their interior design while also including plants in your work?
Well, COVID threw like a real monkey wrench in that plan, so I wasn't going into people's homes indoors. I'll do a little bit like virtual consulting, but really plants have like they've taken over. It is the indoor jungle. They take up all the real estate in my house. Everybody here is sick of me and all my mental real estate. So it's like it's all about houseplants now.
Yeah, totally. I feel like especially more than ever, houseplants are really having a moment.
Yes.
And it's beautiful to see, but also houseplants are really hard to take care of. Like I find I struggle more to take care of my houseplants than I do the plants in my garden. So I wonder, how do you grapple with that too, and taking care of your plant jungle?
Well, the first thing really is assessing your environment. And I think that we're all kind of guilty of seeing a plant, liking a plant, and bringing that plant home, right? Without actually knowing whether or not it can live in our home. So once you kind of assess what your lighting is, whether or not that plant needs a brighter light, a lower light, can it acclimate to average household humidity? Does it need, more humidity? Once you know those things, you can find the lid for your pot, so to speak, like you're going to find just the right plant that will survive in your particular environment. Because plant care, it's non-linear. There are no hard and fast rules to it.
Yeah. Except
for drainage holes. That's something that we just cannot, that's non-negotiable. But everything else, you really have to make adjustments for your environment. You can add the grow lights, you can add the humidifiers, but just recognize it's going to change from house to house, plant to plant. So once that is kind of, you know what you have, then you can succeed. Like I know that I cannot have anthuriums. I love them. They're beautiful, but the level of humidity that I would have to introduce here, it's just impossible. So, I've come to accept that.
Yeah, when I go into the conservatory at the botanical gardens, I see plants like, monstera and all of these beautiful tropical plants just flourishing. It's like, yes,
Yes.
this is the environment that they're native
Yes.
to. This is the conditions that they need. So it would make sense that like my little plant is struggling in my New York City.
Exactly. And it's like another thing, plants are not perfect in nature. They're going to be yellow leaves, there'll be crispy edges. And, I think once you also have that acceptance and don't expect this unnatural level of just constant perfection, it's also easier, like when I first started collecting, I would totally panic if I saw any yellow leaf, any sign of yellowing. I thought, oh, it's dying, but it's not. That's just the cycle of the plant. That's the lower leaves are the older leaves. They're going to die off. And, if you can just like kind of like find that place of Zen, you can have plants, and some will die, and that's okay too.
Exactly. It's an important lesson in life.
Yeah, it really is.
It happens. It's the cycle.
It's the cycle.
One thing that I've been really thinking deeper about as we are heading into Black History Month is like Black people's historically kind of difficult relationship with plants, and from forced violent labor on plantations, coming to this country, taking care of cotton, taking care of tobacco, keeping those plants alive, which is the foundation of what America was built on, is the production of crops. But now kind of speeding into 2022, seeing Black people reconnecting with gardening, nature, plants, land, and like finding joy again in it. And I just wanted to know if you could speak more to how you're reconstructing this narrative in your own work or reclaiming your history, and if you don't feel that's something that you're doing, like
no, it absolutely is. It is. And you're absolutely right. We have a very complicated relationships with plants, right? And I think that if we reframe the narrative and kind of like just like adjust our lens, we are growers, we are nurturers, we have this magical ability to cultivate. And I think that when we reclaim that and not the shame of the institution of slavery, which, the shame is not ours, we were involuntary participants. So I think that when we kind of like relieve ourselves of that, then we can get back to the growing and find the peace and the revolutionary rest in that, and the kind of like collective healing. So I do think that I really think it's important for Black people to reconnect with plants. I think that is something that has been missing, and we've had such a negative relationship with growing, when really, I mean, it's a beautiful thing. It's incredible to be able to cultivate and care for these green beings. And I think that the reclaiming of that narrative that I see happening now, more Black farmers, more houseplant enthusiasts, more, houseplant sellers. I mean, I've discovered so many nurseries that exist. I just think it's incredible, and it's a really wonderful thing.
I love that. Yeah. And I like what you really said earlier about how it's your act of reclaiming rest, is like taking care of plants and having plants.
Exactly.
Which
right. Our ancestors were not able to find the enjoyment, and, they didn't have the luxury of enjoying the growing. So like there's that expression, we are our ancestors' wildest dreams, and that is for real. Yeah. I am never, ever, they're always in the back of my mind. When I am growing, when I'm outside in my yard, it's just like, it's incredible to think of how far we've come. We still have so much further to go, but to be able to have this experience and this joy and this relaxation, we really ought to embrace it.
Exactly. And you basically just answered my next question, which was, how do plants liberate you? But
yes.
You've definitely shared that in terms of all the ways in which it brings you joy and peace. And I love that you've left that corporate law world to find something that brought back to you and poured into you, which sounded like it was taking away from you.
Yes, exactly. When I pour into them, they're literally like pouring right back into me. Like when you have that relationship with plants, it's reciprocal. There is there's giving and taking in this relationship. It's a real relationship. Exactly. And it's beautiful.
And that makes me also wonder if you have any advice or tips for young Black professionals who might be hesitant to get into the plant world, or not sure if that's something that they can make a career out of. Would you have any advice or tips, stuff that you wish you would have known before?
I would say, like, step out on faith. Like, I think that there sometimes is this attitude like, that's not for us. That's not what we do. We've been kind of conditioned to go into the safe fields that, like, even my going into law school, I didn't go because I felt like, this was something I felt passionately about, but it was, what my mom's, kind of like set up, like, you should do this. This will, secure a nice, stable life for you. You'll find success there. I think we need to really reframe and redefine what success is. We've been kind of like duped into believing that success is only found in making piles of money. That's the only way to succeed, and to kind of follow very traditional career paths, where that's just not true. Like, I am finding so much joy and so much, opportunities that I never even imagined from these plants. But it came from me reframing how I thought, things had to be. What was my next step? What I had to do? What opportunities were available to me? So I think that if it's something that they want to do, if it's something that they have always dreamed of, you don't have to start huge. You can start small, put your toe in the water, and just give it a try, and really, like, believe that you can. And it's incredible the things that can follow from that, from just like believing that you can do it.
Mm-hmm. And having faith in yourself, and like just taking the first step. Sometimes that's the hardest part of just like trying to, if it's different from what you were told is success, or the path you should go on.
Right. And it's like, also, when you see these spaces and you don't see a lot of reflections of yourself, you think it's not for you.
Yeah.
It's like, all right, but it is. You just have to kind of like make that room and create that space, take up that space and be there. Like, I have two girls, and sometimes, the oldest one, she'll say, well, she loves theater, and I don't know if I'm going to get that part. Well, it's not for you to say no. You go try, go and, take that step and just give it a shot. Don't weed yourself out. So when they, don't see themselves, or don't think it's a space for them, don't then take the path to no. Like, create this path to yes, like, yeah, there is space for me there. So,
and that's exactly what you're doing in your work too, with because you have a whole account that's dedicated to showing Black people with plants.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. Exactly. And that is because, when I started Plant Blurred on Instagram, you're looking on the Discover page, and you're looking for other faces like yours, and they're not showing up. Like, the way the algorithm is boosting certain accounts. And it was hard at first, when I first started the account, to find other Black planters. Initially I found gardeners, which was great, and that led me to some other houseplant enthusiasts. But there wasn't, like, I call them reposting pages. None of those pages would really reflect back to me. And, during 2020, during the tragic events where we lost Mr. Floyd and Ms. Taylor, and Black Lives Matter, the hashtag was trending. Then you saw the page kind of like change. But it was like something that was trending for them. And then it went back to business as usual. And I was like, this can't be. We are not a hashtag. We are not a trend. We are here every day. Black History Month is in February, but it's 365 days, So I started Black People with Plants, and it's like my love letter to us. And I love that page. It's my baby.
Oh, I love that so much. And it's so important that that exists, and that, because even if you like, sometimes I'm just trying to do a project where I'm looking for stock images of Black people holding plants or holding
Right.
leaves or in a garden. And it's so hard to find in Google searches, just that alone. So having those images be posted and in a place is like such an archive, which I love, of this moment right now and
Right.
in a continuing moment. So thank you so much for providing that virtual space. And you
It's my
also,
pleasure.
yeah, and you also do really beautiful stuff with pop culture and plants too. So I kind of want you to just speak a little bit more about that too.
Yes, I am a Black nerd through and through. You know, I'm very much into Star Wars, Harry Potter, Game of Thrones, you name it. You know, I get all nerdy into it. So I love also connecting with other people who share that kind of like nerdy joy.
Excellent. I'm a big Harry Potter fan, so I
Yes,
definitely need to buy some of the t-shirts that you have on your site. They're really cute.
I
Um,
love Potter.
if you were a plant, though, what plant would you be and why?
So if I were a plant, I would be the Monstera deliciosa. I love that plant. This is my girl.
Mine too.
And I mean, of all the plants, I have tons that I call my favorite, but this one really is through and through. And I think that I think I would be this plant because it is both accessible and extraordinary. You
Mm,
know, it is very easily available. You can find it. It's not, you know, a rarefied plant that people can't gain access to. But in that same breath, you know, it's extraordinary. This plant is like a showstopper. I mean, look at these leaves. It's
so
gorgeous.
gorgeous,
I
yes.
love this plant.
And that's like a wonderful choice. It's definitely one of my favorite plants too.
Yes. I
Do
mean,
you
she
have
never stops growing. I love this plant.
do you have any exciting projects that you would like to share, or workshops coming up, or just anything that you would like to highlight in your work?
I do. I'm actually writing a book, which is obviously houseplant focused. It's in the very early stages, so that's all I can share right now. But you know, it's thrilling because I'm a certifiable bibliophile. You know, I love books are my first love. I'm a greedy reader, so you know, the girl who loves books is now writing one. It's just not something I never even imagined. So I'm very excited about that. And I'm also participating in a virtual, I guess it would be a conference if it were in person, called the Great Grow Long. So those are two really exciting, fun things that are coming up.
When is the conference happening?
The conference is happening in March, and you can keep yourself updated by following me on Plant Blurred on Instagram for updates. And that, yeah, it's a Great Grow Long. I will be on there, I want to say March 12th date, but I may be misstating the date, but it'll be Houseplants Happy Hour. So I'd love to see people there. Join me.
That's amazing. Yeah, I was going to ask if you could just share where people could find you on the internet. So you said Plant Blurb. Is there any other places that you want to show out?
Yes, I am very, you know, it's a little bit nutty, but I'm across all platforms. I'm on Pinterest, TikTok, Instagram. YouTube is coming, and you can find me under Plant Blurred under that name across all channels, and also Black People with Plants, both on Instagram.
Oh, excellent. Thank you so much, Kamili. I really appreciate
Thank you.
taking the time to share your expertise and magic with us. You look fabulous.
Thank you.
So we really appreciate you being a part of this series.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me.